This video is about the word bit rupt, R-U-P-T, which means to break. We're going to build 8 main words using it by adding prefixes and or suffixes. So the first word that we're going to build using rupt is the noun rupture, which means to break or burst suddenly. We make rupture using our root, the main bit of meaning, rupt, plus this suffix, which turns verbs into abstract nouns. The word rupture first appeared in English in the late 1300s as a medical word, meaning the breaking, the fracturing of an arm or a leg. I guess that was a more common occurrence in the 14th century than it is today. And rupture still has the same basic meaning today, something breaking, and it has a connotation of something breaking violently. In some places where it gets very, very cold in winter, water pipes can sometimes rupture. When water gets so cold that it freezes, or nearly freezes, it expands, and if that expansion puts too much pressure on the water pipes, they can burst, they can rupture. And rupture is also still used in the medical sense too. If your appendix or your eardrum or one of your tendons ruptures, that's not good, and you require immediate medical care. It's also often used in a metaphorical sense these days. The evening calm was ruptured by a flapping, fighting cacophony of feeding corellas. The next word we're going to build using our root rupt is disrupt. This prefix means, in this case, apart, and this bit still means to break. To disrupt means to break apart or forcibly separate, and it's now most often used metaphorically. We can inflect our verb disrupt as disrupts, disrupting, disrupted, and we can turn it into a noun by adding this suffix, making disruption. Remember, the T and the I together give us that sh sound in disruption. And we can also turn it into an adjective if we take off that ION, and then if we add the suffix ive, I-V-E, disruptive. The constant leaf-blowing noises are very disruptive to my concentration. From there, we can either add ness, N-E-S-S, to make disruptiveness, which is a noun, or we could take off that ness and add ly, L-Y, to make the adverb disruptively. Next, we're going to take off the dis prefix and replace it with e, which means out. So now we have erupt, a breaking out. Again, to erupt can be used metaphorically or literally, as in a volcanic eruption, wherein magma breaks through the Earth's crust and then becomes lava as it flows as a liquid out over the ground, where we usually have no molten rock of any kind. And we can inflect our verb erupt as erupts, erupting, erupted. We can make a noun, eruption. We can make that a plural, eruptions. And we can make the adjective eruptive and the adverb eruptively. Next, we're going to build the word corrupt. This prefix here usually means something like together, but in this word it probably just is giving extra emphasis to the next bit of meaning in the word, which in this case is, you guessed it, rupt, again meaning to break. So corrupt originally meant decomposing or spoiled, as in the store of apples in those barrels was corrupted. But by the late 1300s, corrupted taken on the modern meaning of being guilty of dishonesty involving bribery. These days, we're most likely to hear the word corrupt, or the noun built from it, corruption, in descriptions of politicians or police who are behaving badly. Corrupt can be inflected in all the usual ways, so we can have corrupts, corrupting, corrupted. We can also have the past participle corrupted and its antonym uncorrupted, acting like adjectives. And we can also build the lovely adjective uncorruptible. Finally, we come to interrupt. The inter prefix means between, and we can also see it in words like interview, interest, interchange, intersect, intersection, intertwine, interact, interaction, interactivity, interacted, and so on, interfere, and international. And of course, interrupt. So interrupt means to break into or disturb the action of something, often speech. If you interrupt someone who is talking, you are breaking into the conversation. Interrupt, of course, can be inflected as interrupts, interrupting, interrupted, and we can also make the noun interruption, and it's plural, interruptions. And the past participle interrupted can take on the role of an adjective. He interrupted her explanation, there it's a verb, he interrupted her explanation by sneezing loudly. It was an abrupt and unexpected interruption, that's a noun. After telling him Gesundheit, the interrupted lesson, there it's a past participle being an adjective, the interrupted lesson got back on track. We can also build the antonym of interrupted, uninterrupted. When we talk, the speech sounds actually come out of our mouths in one long, uninterrupted string, and it's our understanding of individual words that allows us to imagine the edges or the boundaries of each word, uninterrupted. Our last rupt verb is erupt, with an IR at the beginning, erupt, which is not a very common word. I actually had to look it up to check its meaning. It means to enter suddenly, violently, or forcibly. And it also has a special meaning in ecology, a sudden sharp increase in the relative members of a natural population, usually associated with favourable alterations of the environment. Thanks, Merriam-Webster Dictionary Online. Here's an example sentence. The owl's appearance came during an eruption. A huge southward migration of snowy owls from their Arctic territories that this year followed a successful breeding period. And our second last word is the adjective abrupt, which can be built from the prefix ab, meaning off or away from, and rupt. So abrupt means to suddenly break off, and it's usually used metaphorically. We can also make abruptly an adverb and abruptness, which is a noun. And on that abrupt note, our very last word for this family is the adjective or verb bankrupt, which comes from two bits of meaning, bench, bank, and rupt, broken. If someone is declared legally unable to pay their debts, then they are bankrupt. So in conclusion, we have rupture, a noun, a bunch of verbs, disrupt, erupt, corrupt, interrupt, and erupt. We have an adjective abrupt and an adjective or a verb bankrupt.